Aware. Here's Peter MacArthur.
It's Thursday. It's May 28th, and it's 9:35 here on Del Aware. I'm Peter MacArthur. Thanks for joining us this morning. It was an hour ago that we got the latest unemployment numbers. Not great. Another 2.1 million people filing for unemployment. It tops 40 million now collectively since all this started to unfold several weeks ago. And since that time, we've been talking a lot with Chris Burkhard with Placer Staffing in Newark. Chris, the numbers really, they may be improving on some levels, but they're still very, very grim. People that are 6 or 8 weeks into this process now are, in many cases in dire straits. And so we're trying to provide some tips through you for them to get them on a better path. I think probably something that a lot of people have been doing, for instance, is sending out resumes. And I know in the past, it's been a while, for me, when I send out resumes, like the minute it hits the mail, Chris, I'm like, okay, I can't wait for them to get back to me. This is going to be great. And, obviously time goes by. There's things that they need to do on the other end. But once I send a resume, so as not to be a pain in the neck, what do I do next?
Well, Pete, good morning, first of all.
Good morning.
But most folks really don't know what to do next. And believe it or not, 2 out of 3 people, workers, don't follow up with the employer at all after submitting their resume for consideration. I think it's important to take that extra step to let the employer know that you have interest, but it can be very challenging to know what to do and how to follow up. So I have 3 suggestions.
Okay.
The first thing is, if you know the recruiter or human resources person by name, you should follow up with a phone call or email. But your follow-up should not be, I wanted to make sure you received my resume. And over the last 30 years, that's probably the most common thing that I've heard. You should assume they've gotten your resume, because all your contact can do at that point is say, yes, we've got it.
That's right.
Or no, I haven't reviewed it yet. Your follow-up should be around your interest in working for the company and what the next steps might look like for you. That way you can find out how long they'll be collecting applications, or perhaps when they will start reviewing those submitted applications and setting up interviews. You can take away that sort of unknown that you described. Once you press that button or drop off that application, maybe it'll put a timeline to the process for you.
Yeah. What else?
Well, if someone has recently had an interview, we recommend that they send a thank you note. And for the longest time, there's been real power in a handwritten note. It really sets you apart from the pool of candidates. But if we evaluate today's realities, emails have to be acceptable. With so much remote work, mail is really hard to come by. That person may not get that piece of mail till long after the interview process has concluded. So I would personalize an email expressing your thanks and interest, and know that the new best practice probably has to be electronic.
Yeah. You mentioned one more, number 3?
Yeah. I encourage folks, so now you've got this new skill to follow up on the one job that you want. But I think you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket and apply only for that one job. You've got to keep looking for work. Your goal is really to create as many opportunities for yourself as possible so you have choices. A little secret, all employers want to pick from 2 or 3 qualified candidates. And I think that's really great advice for the job seeker. You should create 2 or 3 jobs that you'd like to consider.
Yeah, while it becomes a balancing act, perhaps, if you're interviewing with one place on Wednesday and another place on Thursday, this is a good problem to have.
It's a great problem to have, but a lot of times I find people end up with one offer and they really wanted to hear from a couple of other employers, and that causes quite a bit of stress for somebody if things don't line up right for them.
Yeah, let me ask you this then. If you do have a situation where you are literally in the running for a position at 2 different spots, I mean, what would you tell people in terms of maybe making a decision on which one to focus on a little bit more, or a sign that maybe you pull out a little bit from this other one over here? I know it's a bit of a broad question, but do you have anything that kind of might help someone in that respect?
Well, I think there's a couple of interesting, probably different lines of thinking around this. You described the moment with 40 million folks unemployed. So you could have the first response is that I've got a job offer and I've got to take it, right? That feeling that I've got this right in front of me and who knows what tomorrow brings. So I certainly think that's something that folks need to consider, and I understand if they would feel that need to accept that.
Right.
But I also think that employers can and are willing to hear the truth. If you say that you need 72 hours in order to evaluate this decision because you had submitted your application into a couple of employers, and that's the timeline by which you think you'll have your decision made, or perhaps that you need to talk to your family at home and make sure this is the right choice with you.
Mm-hmm.
I do find that a degree of transparency is appreciated and accepted by employers.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about Chris? By the way, we're talking with Chris Burkhard, Placer Staffing in Newark, and we're talking jobs. It's what we do. What are the best uses of time for someone to build that resume and their skills while they're out of work?
Well, I think, first off, if you read any article about job search, it says get up in the morning, put your best clothes on for work, and then spend all day looking for work 8 to 5. That can be unreasonable, and it can be hard. There has to be breaks and things that you do that maybe to build your resume or to work on your skills while you're unemployed. So I've got 2 things that I recommend that folks do. One is to better themselves. And this is a wonderful time to take a class online. Perhaps your field has some certification or continuing education path. Most of us fall behind on that stuff, so maybe it's an opportunity to hit refresh and do those things. And I've found that a lot of local community colleges allow you to audit a class for free or low cost, and there's so many online courses that have a low-cost subscription amount today to explore a topic of interest. And that can really bolster your resume, especially if what you're bettering yourself around is in your field.
Yeah, well, that's great advice. And I think a lot of people would just, that would not be top of mind and really should be. So that's an excellent little nugget there. Okay, you're an entrepreneur, right? Big risk and reward guy. And I know you come by it honestly. I know that your previous generations have gone down this same path to some degree. Maybe people that are now, as we mentioned, 6 or 8 weeks into this, I don't have a job thing, are thinking about striking out on their own, maybe starting a small business. Man, I mean, it's a scary prospect. It's an exciting prospect. What do you have on that?
Well, I have a lot to say on this one, so you'll have to interject when you need to.
All right.
I think it's a fantastic time to be starting a business if you're prepared, have a plan, and plan to do it right. So I think I have 4 points to share. We'll see. Well, first of all, people don't realize that an awful lot of brand names and big companies were started during recessions. Company like Microsoft or General Motors or more recently Airbnb. And if you will allow, my first company started the morning of 9/11. So necessity is the mother of invention. It's when a lot of times folks have this inflection point that I'm not working, but I have these ideas. So a couple of things I recommend that you do. First of all, make a list of local entrepreneurs. Check out your top 100 lists or your Inc. lists. They'll give you names and contact information for area small business people. And then maybe you can add others that you know. But I tell you, call or email them and ask them for time to hear their story.
Yeah.
How did they get into the field? How did they start their business? Small business people are the most generous with their time, and they often give back. I spent time with 30 or so business people before I started my company. And by the way, if you do this step really well, you're going to create job offers for yourself along the way and have more choices for work, which is the whole goal.
Right. Solid. Number 2.
Second thing I recommend, you may fall in love with your business idea and the widget you want to make, but you have to have support at home. Starting a business takes sacrifice and months, if not years of hard work. And you may believe in yourself and your idea, but are those around you, are they on board, and do they understand the challenges? You may be able to get a loan to start your business. In fact, I'm sure you could. However, you might be expected to have your own living expenses until that business gets going. Spouses and other family need to know that game plan. And I can assure you in my house, somebody needed to sign off on that before I got going with it.
Yeah. If mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, right?
You got that right. And certainly then the kids aren't on board either.
Yeah, yeah.
The third point, there are so many great resources locally. SCORE, SBA, Small Business Development Center, mentors. They have great resources to help you define your business plan and help you with all those early stages of starting a business. I benefited from everything I mentioned.
I've always thought that in Delaware, maybe it's a geographic thing, that the collateral kind of services you're talking to, the support services, are especially strong, Chris, and especially valuable, I think, because we have more opportunities to face with people, and that can be literally being in the same room or over the phone. Delaware, I think, is very approachable that way.
I think I was blessed to have an entrepreneurial family to count on, but there were so many things that I needed that were outside of that sphere of influence. And you're right. Now it's a video chat, but it used to be just a drive-by appointment away.
Sure.
But because everybody is so close, it's really easy to get things done.
Yeah, for sure. What about number 4, Chris?
Well, make sure you understand what your business is. I asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? If you're going to spend, I kind of view it this way. Someday I want my grandkids to ask me, hey, Pop-Pop, why did you spend the last 30 years with Placers? And I want to make sure that business purpose is very clear. And I got a good answer that I devoted my time and energy to that. And I think it's a really great way for people to think about pursuing a business and making sure that they're very clear with why they want to do that.
Yeah.
On the customer side, why should anyone buy from you or buy what you want to sell? Successful businesses solve a problem for a particular set of customers. So do you know who your customer is and what that problem is? And how will you solve it better than anyone else?
Yeah, good stuff. Chris, we're up against the clock a little bit here. So here's what I want to do. I want to make sure that if people are listening to Chris Burkhard here from Placer Staffing in Newark, they want to find out more about what you're about, some of the things you just talked to. Where can they find that information out?
If you just search myplacers.com or Placers Act of Kindness, we're here to help anyone for free with any aspect of their job search.
All right.